Let's just keep the winning feeling. Duke knocks off Kansas in the Champions Classic. Blue Devils remain undefeated.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is J.J. Jackson. So great to have you here with us today for our Wednesday episode of Locked On Blue Devils, November 19th, 2025. Locked On Blue Devils is, in fact, your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on inside the life of Duke athletics. And on today's show, we're talking about this Duke basketball victory over the Kansas Jayhawks in the Champions Classic. Duke led in this one by Cameron Boozer. Yet again, another double-double, 18 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. An all-around team effort for the Blue Devils, who knock off the Jayhawks, and Duke remains undefeated. Joining us on the show, we'll have Kevin Connelly, who is in the building tonight at Madison Square Garden. Now 9 consecutive wins for Duke inside MSG. Let's keep that streak going, and excited to break it all down on the show today. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Take a moment, if you will, like this video on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and go ahead and share it with your friends as well. Follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils. We're on Instagram and TikTok too. So without further ado, here is Kevin Connelly. Let's get into it, man. A big-time performance, a big-time win for Duke. 9 straight wins in Madison Square Garden, and this was Duke's first win of the season over a ranked opponent. They won those exhibition games, one against a ranked Tennessee squad, but this one counted. A big win for Duke here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, JJ. I think some of the starch got taken out of this game once we found out earlier on Tuesday that Kansas superstar Darren Peterson wasn't going to play. In the mix to be a number 1 overall pick with A.J. DeBonsa and Cameron Boozer had been out the past couple of games with a hamstring injury. So the fact that he wasn't playing, I think a lot of people thought Duke was going to cruise in this game. And I think that's a major disservice to Bill Self and what he's done as a head coach and what he's built as a program. If you thought Duke was just going to cruise to a victory here against Kansas, Bill Self had his team ready to go. They performed well, and especially in that first half. Really, you look at this game, and I think a part of it flipped when Flory Badunga, who at one time, JJ, we thought he was going to be a Duke Blue Devil.
Yeah.
When he picked up his second foul in the first half, that's when Duke was able to pull ahead going into halftime. And then in the second half, they were just able to keep them at an arm's length away for most of it to eventually win by 12.
Yeah, it's just an all-around effort for Duke to pull this one out. You mentioned kind of the struggles there early in the first half for the Blue Devils, but they were able to grind it out defensively once again. I know that was one of the big things we talked about today over on Locked On College Basketball. Really fun to have a roundtable with all 4 schools represented, myself included, breaking this one down. And in a lot of ways, I felt like maybe it would be a slower offensive night for both of these teams. Kansas really struggled shooting it from the outside without Darren Peterson. Yet again, Duke has a run-in with Trey White, who's on his 4th school in 4 different years. He played against Duke while he was at Louisville. He played against Duke last year when he played for Illinois, and now another run-in with Duke playing for Kansas. He was one of the biggest reasons they were able to stay in the game early on after the foul trouble from Badunga, but Duke's defense stood tall when they needed to most and got it done.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, JJ, when you look at it. Kansas shot better in the second half than they did in the first half. I mean, this is a Kansas team that shot 50% from the field in the second half, but the big number was that they were 2 of 10, and they were only 2 of 11 in the first half. So even though Kansas was getting to the rim and finishing and even getting to the free throw line at times in this game, Duke was running them off the three-point line. They were happy with Kansas attempting three-pointers for the most part because they really haven't proven that they're able to hit them, and they didn't in this game. So the Duke defense did really lock in after that first couple of minutes where you're just trying to get a flow and a feel into the game.
And Duke ultimately ended up winning the rebounding battle 41-30, because when you're missing the shots, you got to grab the rebounds. When Duke was behind, I think Kansas's largest lead in this one was 6 points. Yeah, 6 points for the Jayhawks. When that was playing out early, Duke was not rebounding. Tiller and Badunga on the inside for Kansas were really taking it to Boozer and Gongba. And then all of a sudden, Maliq Brown comes in, Sparkplug Brown, man, he does his thing, kind of gets Duke settled in and ready to go, and then Duke took over on the rebounding battle, and he had to go plus 11 against the Kansas team with the front court and kind of the size that even Kansas has. That was a big win for Duke.
Well, yeah, and you specifically look at the offensive rebounding. Kansas had 5 offensive rebounds in the first half, and that translated to 6 second chance points. In the second half, they only had 3 offensive rebounds. And even though they were able to cash those into second chance points, it's obviously huge, just limiting this Kansas team to only 3 offensive rebounds in the second half. And as you said, that's a big reason why Duke was able to come out with a victory in this game.
Another big reason why Duke was able to get the job done is that Cameron Boozer plays for the Blue Devils, and he doesn't play for Kansas. It's nice when we mentioned Darren Peterson, who wasn't able to go for the Jayhawks. Duke's got their superstar, who was. Once again, Jon Scheyer, right out of the gate, is able to script up a remarkable back screen. All of a sudden, Gongba's got the ball on the wing and is able to find Cameron Boozer underneath. I mean, right out of the gate, Kevin, we saw a bucket from Cameron Boozer, and then not his most efficient night all told, but still, when Duke needed buckets, that's who they went to on the inside, and Cameron Boozer was pretty impressive.
Well, JJ, just think about a week ago when that video ended up being published of Jon Scheyer scripting the first play when Duke was on these plays, and they're able to get easy looks at the basket on their first possession. So that's really big for this team.
All right, if we can keep that up, it's going to be good if Duke can have these great starts with the Wizard and Jon Scheyer. There was another play where it went to a timeout late in the second half, Kevin, with 2 seconds on the shot clock, right? And Duke was fortunate that the media timeout came as the ball went out of bounds, so they're able to go over to the sidelines, draw something up, and what a tough, honestly, back-breaking shot against Kansas as we were able to get Slim open in the corner.
Yeah, that was the dagger. I mean, just given the shot clock situation, Kansas thinks that they're probably in good position to get a stop. And I'm sure we'll get into Isaiah Evans in the next couple of minutes or so. But, like, man, if you need a bucket, I know Cameron Boozer is great, and I don't think he really played well in this game despite his stat line. But if you need a bucket, or if you need someone to put up a big-time shot, I feel like it's going to be tough this season if you don't go to Isaiah Evans, because it just feels like he's always ready for the big moment, and especially in these games. I mean, he played great against Texas, which was in an NBA arena. It was in Charlotte to open up the season. He plays great on the road against Army, which was a hostile environment and a really special game. And then he plays great again here tonight under the bright lights of Madison Square Garden against a big-time team like Kansas.
Yeah, let's talk about Slim. So 16 points, 5 of 11 shooting, 3 of 7 from three-point range, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, played 30 of the 40 minutes out there for Duke. I thought, okay, the 3 threes he made, we can break them down for people. It was on one after the Cameron Boozer dunk on the interior. Duke's second bucket was a wing 3 from Isaiah Evans. He took all of half a second to think about shooting it, and then did, as Foster had a quick advance pass. Once he made that, I think Duke fans collectively, Kevin, were like, yep, we're good. Slim's feeling it. It's going to be a good night. That was that make that he had. Then he had one at the very end of the first half after Trey White had hit a big three-pointer for Kansas to cut it to 5. Duke was able to get a 3 from Isaiah Evans, extend the lead back to 8. And then, like we mentioned, the late 3, his third and final 3 of the game, was with 2 seconds on the shot clock coming out of the timeout.
Listen, JJ, all 3-pointers count the same. They're all worth 3 points, but they're not all equal, right?
Yeah.
Some feel bigger than others. And I think specifically the one at the end of the first half, that was such a huge 3-pointer to make a 6-point lead, a 9-point lead. And then, like, as we talked about just a couple of minutes ago, that back-breaking 3-pointer at the end of the shot clock late in the second half, which really was the dagger. And that was the sigh of relief, like, okay, Duke's going to win this game.
And how about the 2-point field goals that he had? He had the 3 threes and then 2 more shots from the floor, able to put it on the deck a little bit more. I know Jay Billis was talking about that in the television broadcast, that being more of a focal point for Isaiah. You and I have been talking about that a lot throughout the offseason. We want more of his shot diet to be other things than just heaving up 3-pointers. But he had the big dunk in transition after a remarkable outlet pass from Cameron Boozer. And then earlier in the first half, I think he had that tough drive and kind of finished and one through contact.
Yeah, every time he scores, I think I said this to you even after the Army game, every time he scores, you just feel a jolt of energy go through this team because he's that microwave and volume type shooter. That's the kind of player that he is. So when Isaiah Evans is giving you that energy and that scoring boost, it just infuses everybody with a little bit extra energy and pep in their step. And I think that's what you really saw tonight. And those two plays, I think, are good examples of it. The end one early in the first half, and then midway through the first half, that big time dunk.
Yeah, big time dunk for Slim. Love those plays above the rim. Keep them going. So Duke wins 78-66 over the Kansas Jayhawks as the Blue Devils are still undefeated here this basketball season. Let's talk a little bit more about Mr. Boozer and the greatness of Cam when we come back here in just a moment. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. College football is here, and I couldn't be more excited. Tailgates, rivalries, energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless waiting queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout, all of that just isn't fun. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. The easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, I'm able to see amazing deals. Talking about our favorite college football games for as low as $25. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Game Time is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, Duke wins 78-66 over Kansas. The Blue Devils 5-0 now on the year. Next up for Duke, they've got the Brotherhood run, back-to-back home games against Niagara and Howard, and then Duke's got another major conference opponent in Arkansas that they will play in Chicago. Arkansas tonight, crazy finish against Winthrop where they were only able to win by 1. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll save John Calipari's Hogs for next week. Got to keep talking about this win over Kansas. And I want to go back to Cameron Boozer, who, again, 18 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, block shots. He gets steals. He does everything for this team. But, Kevin, tonight there were moments where it was a bit of an inefficient Cameron Boozer. And the size of the Jayhawks seemed to bother him a little bit. There were a couple of plays where Flory Badungan and Bryson Tiller were able to get blocks at the rim over Boozer. And I saw people talking about this on Twitter, watching the game, and some everydayers sending me messages as well. Seems like sometimes Cam Boozer can get a little pump fake, shot fake heavy and happy. What did you make of that and some of his inefficiencies here?
Well, yeah, I don't think this was his best game. Now, I think that Duke is still able to win a win by 12 points against a really good Kansas team, although Darren Peterson didn't play, without getting Cameron Boozer's best effort, I think is a really good sign. I also think it's a really good sign that he goes for 18, 10, and 5 and doesn't play his best game. That just shows you the type of talent he is.
He can still get things done when that's the case, yeah.
Yeah. But JJ, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. Even going back to the exhibitions, I don't think he's faced size like this before. Like when he was matched up with Badunga, who's 6'10", and Tiller, who's 6'11". So I don't think he's seen size like that. Now he's going to in that game against Arkansas, against Florida, who had Michigan State, who, I mean, let's talk about their performance for a second. What they did to Kentucky earlier in the night, that was incredible.
Right.
So he's going to see size later this season. I think this is a good first test because Badunga is a veteran. I know Tiller is a younger player. But I think everyone has to have that first learning step of, okay, this is how I deal with size. And I think you started to see Cameron Boozer get a little bit more comfortable dealing with that size late in the second half than he did in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, certainly Tennessee's got some big bodies with Okpara underneath and Jalen Carey, Vernon's younger brother. They've got some big bodies out there, but I don't know that they're as experienced as someone like Badunga, who some of the plays he was even able to make. You're right. The fact that he was playing against Duke in a matchup like this, so many times I'm sitting there thinking, man, what would this guy look like in a Duke uniform? There's the one play where he's kind of trapped underneath the baseline and somehow jumps out with his left hand and is able to kind of dunk, reverse jam incredibly impressive. And then on the very next possession, Duke got a bucket on the inside from Patrick Gongba. That made me feel so much better about the equation because Badunga's great, but it was really nice for Gongba to not let that affect him in any way, right, Kevin? Gongba, I thought, really stood tall in this matchup.
Yeah, he had his moments. I think there were some times where he struggled as well because Duke isn't they're a good defensive team, but they're not necessarily a rim protecting team. There's no Derek Lively or Kaman Malawach
Yeah.
on this team. So they're not going to rack up the block shots because that's not the game of Gongba or Boozer. But I thought Gongba, despite getting into foul trouble in that second half where he had to go to the bench with 4 fouls, when he came back in, he was locked in and he was still aggressive. So I think that's really, really big for him. He goes 4-4 from the field. He makes 5 of 7 free throws. He's able to have 7 rebounds as well. So I think you're continuing to see his evolution as a player. And the better he gets, the better this team is going to be.
Yeah, there was only 1 block shot for Duke against Kansas tonight. There were 4 blocks for Kansas, just 1 for the Blue Devils, and it was Isaiah Evans. If that would have been a trivia question going into the game or like predict this on your scorecard, I don't know that anybody would have gotten that correct. And yet Duke was still able to find a way and get the win, man.
Yeah, it's impressive. They're slowly coming together. I mean, JJ, I think people, and myself included, could sometimes have an outstretched imagination of what everything is kind of supposed to be. It's only 3 weeks into the season, man. Like, things aren't supposed to be clicking at 100% and firing on all cylinders just yet. So it's going to take time for this team to really get rolling and to really know what they're going to do with everybody out there. Because you even saw the lineups change to the end of the game. You had Cayden Boozer and Caleb Foster out there on the floor and Dame Sarr on the bench. So that's just something to look for going forward in the rest of the season.
All right, take me to the guards. Take me to Caleb Foster and Cayden Boozer. Both guys finished with 7 points. Both guys played 24 minutes. Pretty even numbers in that split, and both rebounded really well. It was 4 rebounds for Cayden Boozer, 3 rebounds for Caleb Foster. In that second half, I was really impressed in a couple of stretches where Duke needed buckets. Cayden was able to put his head down, kind of get to the floater range, get some buckets to go, and then also kind of just slow things down when they needed to, but also, like we love, push the tempo when they need to as well. I think it's another game where, these guys tie in points with 7, but they both had their good moments.
Listen, JJ, I think I had my epiphany during this game.
Okay, let me hear it.
And I think we've been talking about Caleb Foster and Cayden Boozer all wrong the entire season. We've been saying this or that. It's either one or the other. I think there's a legit chance where they could both play. They can both be on the court and be very effective. And you saw that in the last 7 minutes of this game where Jon Scheyer, in a 5-4-point game, whatever it was, I mean, he rolled with the both of them out there on the floor. And we've seen it over the prior 3 games against inferior competition. You're seeing the growth, the development, the maturation of Cayden Boozer. And in a game like this, the fact that Jon Scheyer trusted him over Dame Sarr to be on the floor for the final 7 minutes and help close this game out, I think that speaks volumes. But I think we might have been having this whole conversation wrong the entire summer when we were saying it's either going to be Caleb Foster or Cayden Boozer. No, I don't think that's the case. Are they as talented as a Quinn Cook and Tyus Jones? No. But having those 2 on the floor, I think, could serve this team better in the long run.
There was a stretch late in the second half where Duke had Cayden Boozer out there with Darren Harris, Nick Hamenia, Pat Gongba, and Maliq Brown. And a lot of the questions were, where's the offense going to come from? A really unique 5 that was out on the floor together that really hadn't played at all. And it was Cayden Boozer who went and got some buckets when they needed to the floater, had a nice up and under that he was able to get go. But you're right. I think both of these guys absolutely can play together and play off one another. And just what was a really exciting win. It's much better to be talking about this game victoriously than the opposite, right? As Duke was able to cover that 10.5-point spread, winning by 12 over the Kansas Jayhawks. It's a game that didn't need to go down to the final minutes either, Kevin. Duke was able to kind of get that separation late and didn't find themselves in those one-possession type games that ultimately they lost 4 times last season.
And I think the big part of that was the free throw line. Were they great from the free throw line in this game? No, but they were good enough down the stretch to salt it away.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's talk a little bit more about this game, in particular what's next for Duke, and a few more thoughts with Kevin Connelly from Ball Durham here when Locked On Blue Devils continues in a moment. Our show today is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NBA is back. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA and a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, Kevin Connelly from Ball Durham's here with me today talking about the win for Duke over Kansas. It's our Wednesday episode of Locked On Blue Devils as our guy Kevin was there in Madison Square Garden. What was the turnout like if you were to kind of divide the fans? Because we're watching it on television, Kevin. It's a whole lot of blue. Not always easy to determine, is this Kansas? Is this Kentucky? Is it Duke? And it got loud at appropriate moments for both teams. What did you sense there in the building?
So I feel like Duke probably had the most fans of the four teams here.
Okay.
Pre-game, walking outside the building and around the concourse, you saw a ton of Kentucky stuff. But the Kentucky fans never got loud because they were dominated from start to finish. And Michigan State fans made their presence known. But I will say the most packed the building was at the start of the Duke game, because you have all the Duke and Kansas fans who were arriving late and not really in for the first game. And then the Kentucky and Michigan State fans are sticking around for at least the first half of the second game because you have two great games. But of the Duke and Kansas fans, I think the Kansas fans were a little bit louder, even though they might have been slightly outnumbered. And maybe that's just because I was sitting in the media section closest to the Kansas side. So maybe I'm biased just because I was down there a little bit more. But that's kind of how I would piece it out of what the crowd was like. But a sold-out Garden, there's no better venue in not just college basketball, but in sports than Madison Square Garden for a big event like this.
Yeah, and so many big moments in the sports history have taken place there. So many big moments in Duke history have taken place there. 9 straight wins for the Blue Devils at Madison Square Garden. It's fitting that they debuted those Cameron North kind of warm-up shirts that Duke had on throughout the course of the week. So really fun stuff. And now it's a Duke team who gets set to move forward with Niagara and Howard. Take me to the wing spot, Kevin, as we're still looking for development for both the freshmen in Dame Sarr and Nick Kamenya. The guys combined for just 10 points on the day and just went 4 of 10 shooting combined. Only 1 3-point shot made between the two of them.
To be honest, I thought Kamenya played well. I thought he was probably the most aggressive that we've seen him through this early part of the season. You saw him crash the glass a couple of times for 3 points. I think there was one play where he had the nice putback of a layup.
That was a great putback,
Yeah, so I thought Kamenya played well. With Sarr, I think you're going to, at least for the first month, maybe month and a half, you're going to be riding the Dame Sarr roller coaster where it's like a really good game. You're hoping he builds on it. Not as good of a game. Then the flashes come again. So, and I think for Jon Scheyer, he has to be smart in knowing what type of Dame Sarr he gets on a given night. And he knew the Dame Sarr he had tonight wasn't at his best. And that's where Cayden Boozer came in to play those final 7 minutes.
Yeah, Dame Sarr was active when he was out there defensively, but again, it doesn't really show up in the stat sheet with what he was able to do. But maybe this is a game or a stretch moving forward where, again, he can get more comfortable. It's so clear. We can at least say game 5 of Dame Sarr looking better than, when he was first debuting earlier in the year. And I think that's going to continue to be the case. I saw ESPN puts out their newest mock draft for Dame Sarr as the game's about to get started. They've got him slotted as the number 10 pick overall in the draft. So a lot of high praise for what he's going to be able to do in his future career. It may take him a little bit to get there. But big time win for Duke over a ranked opponent in Kansas. And that's the biggest thing in all of this, Kevin, is that Duke can now say we've been able to accomplish that. We got our first ranked win officially of the season. We've talked ad nauseum about the non-conference matchups that are so premier for Duke, and now they got one here tonight.
Yeah, listen, it's a big win. Again, Kansas was shorthanded, but to get a win like this in a venue like this, it's always important. And I think you're going to have another big test for this team when they play on Thanksgiving night in Chicago against Arkansas. Because, listen, I mean, you don't want to overlook any opponent, but from our perspective, we can. And Niagara and Howard, like, you shrug your shoulders.
Yeah.
You hope nobody gets hurt, and you move on.
Yeah.
But once they finish up those two games, JJ, it is a gauntlet until March or for this team. They hope April, because you only have one mid-major after you wrap up Sunday afternoon against Howard when you play Lipscomb in a couple of weeks. Other than that, it is big time. It is big time opponents. But I should say this team is. I guess they're going to hope they play a mid-major or two in the NCAA tournament in the round of 64, maybe even the round of 32.
Yeah, let's keep the winning ways going for Duke. As again, they haven't lost yet this season, and we'll see how long they're able to carry this winning streak out. It's a much better feeling, man, than what we were experiencing on Saturday with the opportunity in front of Manny Diaz's squad taking on Virginia, and the score being 31-3 at the start of the fourth quarter. We're on to basketball season now, man. 5-5, 2 more games left for Manny Diaz. I know you talk about it all, but yeah, that was just so deflating to watch play out on Saturday.
It reminded me of some of the New York pro football teams when they're in big games. Yeah, JJ, I kind of said it on my own show. Like, if they win one of the next two, cool. They go to a bowl game. If not, the season's over. But we're focused on basketball now.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, Kevin, it's so good to have you back on the show here. Tell us one more time how people can support you and kind of get involved with all your work.
Yeah, we have full coverage of this game over at balldurham.com. Come read us all week. We'll be continuing to react to this game, even through the Niagara and Howard games. And then you come listen to the Believe in Duke Football podcast. Kind of as we said, we're transitioning over to basketball now. So we'll be fully recapping this game today and throughout the rest of the week as well.
Great to see you, Kevin. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks, JJ.
All right, that's Kevin Connelly joining us here on today's episode of Locked on Blue Devils. Really appreciate him taking the time to join us on the show live there from Madison Square Garden. Go support his work at Ball Durham. Follow him on X at Kevin Connelly24. Follow us as well at LO_Blue Devils. We'll get set for the games coming up this weekend for Duke basketball against Niagara and Howard. And we do have a big football game on Saturday against Bill Belichick and the North Carolina Tar Heels. It would be a major disappointment if Duke's not able to win one of these last two and head off to a bowl game. So we'll talk all about that in the upcoming days here on Locked on Blue Devils. Be sure to subscribe wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you again tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.